Hey everyone, I'm here with Nathan Walldorf. Hey Nathan.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Well, I wanted to have you on. So you're a real estate agent in Chattanooga with the group
hmm
real estate brokerage, but you're also a member of the governmental affairs committee at the board too.
Yeah, that's right.
So we were just like chatting about some of the things that you were working on, and you had mentioned that you guys were working on the eviction moratorium, which I'd love to hear about, and then
hmm
like the discriminatory language of old deeds, which I came across like pretty recently, like within the last couple of years, and it's crazy.
hmm Yeah, it is pretty insane what's in some of these deeds.
It's nuts. I mean, if people haven't run across it, like they definitely will, especially, I mean, in Tennessee and Ohio, we have some really old neighborhoods. And so you're
hmm
just like, wow, that's not even close
Yeah.
to legal, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of building in the 50s in
Yeah,
our area,
exactly.
and there was a lot of language inserted into those deeds yeah, it's now not because of fair housing laws, they aren't, there's nothing binding about it, but it's
Right.
still there and it's still transferring every time somebody buys that property. Like, it's
Oh,
still
so
in the language
it doesn't
behind the
get
deed.
changed when they transfer it?
No, and so that was brought before our board. So I'm the chair of the Governmental Affairs Committee, and, it
Hmm.
got brought before our committee and before some of our staff, and they said, and I think a member said, "Look, is there nothing we can do about this?" And
Right.
so what we're looking at doing is going to it would kind of be something that we pass at a local level, and then we where our board approves, kind of going to the our state association, and then
Hmm.
and telling them, look, we would love for this D language to go away. To just when
Well,
deeds
especially
get
because
recorded
it's
to take them out.
do you have like an example? And I know like
Yeah,
you would be reading it, like quoting it, not like,
yeah, it's pretty insane. So
yeah.
so like one example that was given us is, let me see where to start on this thing. That within a 99-year period from the date said property being in a community set apart for residential purpose for the right white race, neither said premises nor any part thereof nor any instrument thereof shall be sold, transferred, leased, rented, or otherwise disposed of, either by guarantee or guarantees herein. I'll skip ahead. Basically, to any Negro, mulatto, or any or other person of color. I mean, it's insane. It even goes after it goes into not being able to have horses or mules or sheeps or goats.
Right.
In the next point, it then goes to any person of Jewish or Hebrew blood, saying that that would, I know it's insane, would not be allowed on whatever property this was. So, though these aren't enforceable, they're still like each time the deed is recorded, this is still there. And
Yeah.
so it's going to take a few steps, but from the Tennessee Association of Realtors, from their recommendation, our General Assembly, hopefully it can become law by next year since they've
Oh, you
already
think it would be
met,
that
voted on it.
fast?
I would hope. I would think this would be a no-brainer that
It
it
seems
needs to
like a
go away.
no-brainer. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, especially like to your point, it's not like it's enforceable anyway. So like removing it doesn't change like the deed or the parcel number or the thing that like is actually the real
Mhm.
property. So I don't think that you would get any pushback. Like, can you imagine what would any pushback be? Because it doesn't change the actual property.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. I don't know how this will affect title attorneys and the work they have to do. You and I, we think that means, you just take this little piece out and get rid of it, but there
Yeah.
may be more to it than that we don't know of. But I would assume if it becomes law that when they're transferring that, they just throw out that piece of what was
It
recorded.
should be like,
So
you know how on Facebook, if you like put something, it should be like content not available or whatever. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
something's missing, but like you don't get to see it.
yeah. So um So we'll see. I mean, that's our hope, and we've got a few hoops to jump through to get it done, as with
Yeah.
government.
I
you
know
know?
that's always how it is.
So,
But I did notice that like in certain neighborhoods around Cincinnati that that type of language would come up on deeds. And I was like, that's
mhm.
insanity, you know? But
Yeah,
like, of course it's insane now, but like, whatever back then. But let's
yeah.
talk about the eviction moratorium. Is it actually up?
I mean, here's what I would say is that it was from what I understood, it was funded in December. There was 25 billion for rent relief that was given to the Treasury Department, and then it
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to go from there to states and then to local entities. So that's my understanding. I can't say that our local governments have done the best job of saying, if
Mm-hmm.
you need to get this money, here's how you do it.
Right, right,
Because I'm still scratching my head on how to
right.
do that. Um, I think that your local, gosh, I can't remember what that office would be called. There should be a local housing office in each city that you can call, but it's a
I
pretty
don't think it's like a
long.
local HUD though.
Well, I do think so. From what I read, it's supposed to go. The money goes to the state, and the state gives it to the city, and then there's a city entity that's dispersing the money.
That is dispersing the money, and I thought and maybe I misunderstood, but I thought the moratorium was like they were saying like you will no longer like
Oh, I'm
the
sorry. I
eviction
I
won't
may
be.
have skipped ahead to rental assistance. There is rental
Oh,
assistance out there, but yeah,
okay.
that moratorium has been extended until September. Yeah, September 30th.
Oh, wow.
So I don't
Does
know how
that
that works with property rights
Yeah, right.
opinion, but
That's a tough thing because that's a
yeah,
long time, you know?
yeah.
So does the rental moratorium, like the evictions on the rental, coincide with the eviction? Like is it evictions
Yeah,
and
you can't evict anybody. In fact, if you go in
but they're
front,
also not getting people aren't getting foreclosed on either if they own it.
that's a great question. I know that there were some banks are doing some forbearance. I mean,
Hmm.
what they put in the law last year, well, some of the assistance they put in last year for forbearance with banks, that only worked if you had like a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac loan. And I
Okay.
mean, anybody who owns rental property knows that you probably are doing an in-house bank loan and not a Freddie Mac or a
Right.
Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan.
Right.
Um, Most banks, at least, I would say earlier in the pandemic, did seem like our local banks that do those types of loans were working with us.
Hmm.
I don't know if everybody's having the same experience across the country. Um, I would think there's going to be a period at which that the banks, how it is. I mean, banks eventually may just kind of throw up their hands and say sorry.
Yeah.
But so that I'm not sure about, like what banks are doing right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be different. Like I started my career wholesaling short sales. So we would get the property that was at our county was going into foreclosure, talk to them, see if we could negotiate like a short sale with them. But I know from dealing with the banks that it's not like they want the properties back, but it does, even though they're big companies, it still
Mhm.
does negatively impact them if people don't pay. You know what I mean? And then that negative impact trickles down to everybody else. So it's
Yeah,
like there has to be like some type of balance too, because people, they're not just not paying for no reason. Like there's a reason they're not paying, you know?
yeah,
Most
yeah, because
people. I
they're
mean,
not
obviously
getting
you have some
paid.
that like
Mhm.
strategically default, but like putting those people aside.
What I do think we need to be voices for telling that type of person, look, you can't do this because it's going to impact everybody else who's trying to buy a
Yeah.
property. What really could impact them later when they're trying to buy more rental properties.
Right.
It's either going to make it more expensive, more difficult to get,
Right.
or something like that. So
Yeah. We're in a real weird time.
yeah,
Are
yeah.
you guys talking at all about um how to kind of get out of this or like what to say to people, like the public?
What do you mean to get out of get
Like to
around the
get out of
moratorium,
this,
or
what's that?
to get around the moratorium? Is that what you
Oh
mean?
no,
Or
I changed topic. Sorry. To get around like the current market that we're in and like making sure like how are we gonna get more inventory? Do you have any
yeah,
idea?
um, that's a great question. I did, read something that Biden's infrastructure plan, if it ever passes, because my understanding is it hadn't passed yet, but
Hmm.
there's a chunk of money in there that would go towards affordable housing.
Okay.
Uh, my wife's a builder, and I was talking to her about it, and it's still,
That would have started building.
yeah, I know she is building, but the question is though, or well, what she said is I can't build really affordably.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
with the way prices are going up so much on materials and everything else. But
Right.
I know I've seen in the past where sometimes a local entity with federal funds will buy a lot, maybe let a builder buy it for less than they have in it in
Hmm.
order to build something more affordable. And that may be coming down the pike. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, I
didn't
think,
think about that, but I've seen a lot of that too in certain neighborhoods or getting like tax breaks or different things or
mhm,
certain nonprofits getting a lot of breaks that build, things like that.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
I wish I had a solution to affordable housing or creating more inventory right
Just any
now.
housing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think builders are building as fast as they can. I mean, I remember being on the board of directors in the early 2000s, and we were talking about how the household formation is greater than the actual number of houses we have back then.
Right.
Even when we were going into the recession and everything, we were still talking about that. And so I always had hope, well, this thing's gonna come back just
Hmm.
because of that. And here we are, right?
Right.
But it's a tough situation now because I think
But it's not even
we're
just
still
affordable
busy.
housing. It's that and the new, the term I've heard used is like the workforce housing. So
Yeah.
affordable housing denotes people that make less than, they make a certain percentage less than the average income. But the
Hmm.
workforce housing are people that make similar, 80 to 120% of the average income, but they still can't afford anything in the area,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know? So like,
I know NER has like what is that program called? It's employer assisted housing, EAH program that we've
okay.
looked at trying to get going in our area, where you can partner with a nonprofit, and then really partner with businesses that help get down payments, like help employees kind of help them with their down payment so they can then buy a house. So,
Hmm.
I mean, that's an option we've explored locally, but
Yeah, that'd
we
be
still
interesting.
have all the same problems
It's the
of
same problem because the problem is the
finding something
inventory.
affordable and close
Yeah.
enough in town, so
Yeah.
and you know how it is too. I mean, some loans, if we're making an offer with an FHA loan, sometimes folks are going, yeah, I'll take the
Hmm.
conventional, because they don't
Yeah.
want the FHA appraisal, and
Right.
they're passing over those people. So
Which that is another thing because you have also a shortage of appraisers. So it's
yeah,
like, oh my gosh.
yeah.
All
So
right.
appraisals are taking forever.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like we're going to solve the world's problems today, but we're going to try.
Yeah, we need to find someone smarter than us to figure out inventory, I think. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, if people do have a question for you, or if they have a referral in Chattanooga, Tennessee, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
yeah, so my name's Nathan Walldorf, and you could call me at 423-544-7700. Or, I mean, my website's walldorfhomes.com with two
Okay.
L's. Everybody spells it like the Waldorf Astoria, but it's got
Yeah.
two L's.
Nice.
So,
It's really like Walldorf.
yes. Mhm.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on and kind of tell us what you guys are working on. That's really interesting stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.